In these lessons on transactional writing, we are dealing with formal writing. We have learned how to write for a meeting, how to advise people about what will be discussed in a meeting by sending out an agenda. And remember, we've also discussed how to record what was discussed and decided in a meeting by taking the minutes. As we saw, sending out the agenda and writing up the minutes are tasks that are normally performed by the secretary of the organization. But who actually runs the meeting? The person who runs the meeting is known as the chairperson. In this lesson, we're going to look at what the role of the chairperson is and how to do this job effectively should you ever get to chair a meeting. It is reasonable to think that one day you may be a chairperson. As well as chairing meetings in the workplace, you may have to chair a meeting for a club or society that you belong to, or even a residents' association for the place where you live. It is useful to know more about how meetings work, so that even if you don't chair the meetings yourself, you know how to participate appropriately and what the jargon means. If you ever get to run a meeting, keep in mind the 6P guide to help you. This is what the 6 Ps stand for. To run a meeting successfully, remember: purpose, participants, preparation, procedure, performance, and postmortem. Let's discuss each of these in more detail. Purpose. Your meeting must have a definite reason for happening. Before setting up a meeting, ask yourself if setting up a meeting is the most successful way to carry out a task. For example, is it necessary to call everyone together for something that you could have easily sent out in an email? Participants. Who attends your meeting will impact on its effectiveness. If you have too many people, not everyone will get a chance to speak. Often people find it easier to make decisions in a smaller group. On the other hand, if you're making decisions that will affect a lot of people, it is unfair not to include them in the discussions. Also, sometimes being able to say 78 members unanimously voted in favor carries more weight than saying that 3 people agreed to the idea. At this point, I want to explain what a quorum is. It is the most important thing to keep in mind when inviting people to a meeting. A quorum is the minimum number of people who must be present before a meeting can officially start or continue. For example, if you live in a townhouse complex, there might be a rule that says your quorum must consist of at least 1/3 of the residents. This is a way of preventing a few people from making decisions that affect many people. The next P is preparation. You cannot expect your meeting to run smoothly unless you are adequately prepared. It is a good idea to make a note of how long you want to spend discussing each point. Make sure that the agenda for the meeting is well planned so that all the items receive a fair amount of discussion without the meeting being too long. Remember that in addition to preparing the agenda and timing, you need to check on all the practical considerations such as adequate seating and refreshments. Now, let's go to the actual meeting itself. And on the checklist, we see that the next point you need to pay attention to is procedure. Even though the meeting may not be that formal, it is still a good idea to familiarize yourself with the rules of the organization concerning things such as passing motions. What does it mean to pass a motion? To pass a motion means to accept a proposal. For example, at a meeting of your soccer club, you may propose that no player shall be allowed to play a match until his or her subscription fees have been paid in full. Someone would then second your motion. This means that they support what you have said. The club will then discuss the matter and a vote will be taken to decide if the motion is passed. Remember, sometimes it is best not to be rigid about procedure. In less formal meetings like brainstorming sessions, the idea is to get people to be as creative as possible and give their ideas. So being rigid about procedure and rules may put a damper on creativity. As a chairperson, you have to control the meeting. You will want people to speak, but avoid them becoming rude or domineering. So, here's a few tips to keep in mind if you want your meeting to go smoothly. Ask questions about aspects that may have been missed. For example, say, "That's an interesting point, but have you considered XYZ?" Extract the details. Ask something like, "That sounds good, but where did you get that quotation from? And what exactly does it include?" Also, ask people to define ambiguous words. Say, "I'm not sure what you mean by temporary setback. When is the problem going to be fixed?" If you need to, you should ask speakers to elaborate. For example, ask them, "Can you describe that in a bit more detail?" The final P on our list stands for postmortem. This is where, after a meeting, you think about what went well and what did not go as well as you would have liked. It is useful to reflect on your experience of chairing a meeting so that you will be aware of your mistakes and thus you can run your next meeting more effectively. Here are some issues to consider when reflecting on your meeting. Did the meeting start promptly? If you start the meeting promptly, it shows that you mean business. Latecomers will soon be aware that they have to be on time. Was every item on the agenda covered? It is important to address every item that is scheduled. Were decisions reached? This shows that the meeting wasn't just talk, but involved action. Was the meeting held in a cooperative spirit? Part of your job as a chairperson is to gently encourage members to cooperate, listen to one another, and avoid hogging the floor. Another point to think about, did you keep to the timetable? If the meeting went on far too long, next time encourage people to state their views quickly, or consider allowing each person one turn to speak per issue. Now, let's quickly consider voting at meetings. Here are some terms that you will surely come across. To abstain from a vote means that you don't vote for or against the motion. This may happen if there is a conflict of interest. For example, if a city councillor owns a share in a garbage removal service, he or she should abstain from the vote on privatizing the garbage removal service in that city. And a unanimous vote is when everyone votes for the same thing. Well, I hope that this lesson will make you a more informed participant in meetings. Keep these points in mind when running your own meetings, and who knows, you may one day be a CEO. Well, that's all from me. Goodbye.